Hi, and welcome to today's episode. I'm so excited to introduce to you today's guest, Tiffany Yelverton. Tiffany is the founder and CEO of Entice Soirées Incorporated. She utilizes EFT to disarm sexual shame so that her clients experience satisfying and fulfilling pleasure. As a master coach, she facilitates educational courses, workshops, retreats, and coaching experiences. She is dedicated to inspiring survivors to love themselves and revive pleasure after cancer treatment through her revolutionary platform, Sexy Survivors. Thank you so much for being here today, Tiffany, and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, so let's first talk about your how you came to find EFT. Let's talk about that and how did it come about for you?
For me, I was working with a spiritual psychologist coach, and she was doing EFT on me for grief for when I lost my mother and for some really deep depression. And she taught me how to create the scripts and everything for my clients. And I use it all the time for myself and my clients. And when I first heard about it, I thought it was a little woo-woo and that it was like, oh, this is okay, whatever. But I've tried pretty much everything else. I've been in talk therapy and, everything, and nothing really was helping with the grief. And I just saw that it really helped me right away and helped me with some relationship issues and bad decisions, I guess, with narcissistic relationships. And I just saw that it was something, a modality that would really help my clients.
Yeah, so then tell me a little bit about what you do for women.
Yeah. So I help women to feel sexier in their bodies, to step into their sensual power and to love themselves and to embrace their bodies the way it is now, not 10 pounds from now or 10 years younger, or just who you are right now as a woman, and embrace that and own it and bring it into the world. And a lot of that has to do with clearing out sexual shame from that cellular level that EFT gets into.
Mhm. So tell us a little bit about the kinds of clients that come to you and if they had sexual traumas or give us a little
So
idea.
I work with high-powered women a lot. I work with moms. A lot of the women I work with are business owners or C-suite executives and almost every woman that sits in my living room or on Zoom has experienced some kind of sexual trauma, and usually some kind of sexual assault in their lifetime. And it is an epidemic. They say it's 1 in 4 women. I think it's probably a lot more than that. But every woman, at least that comes to me, and I was speaking at a group last night, and every woman raised their hand, that some kind of sexual.
So when we're talking sexual trauma, give me like I think most people think, okay, well, you've been raped, you've been whatever, but give us a a version of sexual trauma that you might not think is a sexual trauma. Oh, I don't know if I should raise my hand or not. Like, give me an example of that.
Well, it can, a good example is that when you're married and you say no, you don't want to have sex, and your husband says, well, we're going to have sex anyway, or just does it anyway and keeps coming at you. I've had clients that have woken up in the middle of the night with their husband, penetrating them. That's sexual assault.
Oh my God.
Any unwanted contact or even verbiage towards you is assault.
Okay. So
And some, like, this happened to me this week, was that someone on LinkedIn was having a conversation with me about his parts and penis and everything, if I can say that on here, that, and I was like, I'm not a medical doctor. You need to see a doctor about this. And he's like, can I send you a picture to take a look at? And I said, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to keep conversing. And he sent it anyway. And that is sexual assault in many countries, unsolicited pictures.
Okay. So when we're talking about sexual trauma, sexual assault, that the first thing I think of is like the Me Too movement, right? I mean, this is when the time when everyone kind of started raising their hand and saying, yeah, that happened to me. So when I think back, I think I was pretty lucky. Growing up, there wasn't anything that I can think of that was horrible. But the first thing, and I just mentioned this to my husband, or where was I? Actually at dinner with my sister in Columbus and her husband the other night. We were talking, something came up about this, and we were talking about our first jobs. What was your first job? Okay, so my first job was I worked at Putt Putt. All right, I was
Yeah.
and tell me how you would classify this. My very much older boss, gray-haired guy, I would guess mid-60s, would put my paycheck in my back pocket when I was working, not looking. He would put my paycheck in my back pocket and he would slap my ass, slap me on the
Yeah.
butt. Is that considered sexual
It's
assault?
just considered assault because it's unwanted.
It's something I didn't
Eh,
ask for. It's something I
yep.
wasn't looking for. I mean, I didn't even, and even if people are, I mean, some people say I think that there's this belief, which I have worked with clients that have this belief that they brought it on themselves. They did something to attract that behavior, and
Mhm.
that's where I find a lot of my clients are stuck around,
Oh,
it
absolutely.
was my fault. So do you see that a lot where,
Oh, yeah. I think society tells us that every day. Like, oh, people don't believe women when they come forward. And the first thing they ask sometimes is, what were you wearing? That has nothing to do with it. Like,
yes, right, did you have
did
some
you,
going were you wearing a short skirt? Did you, um, in other words,
were you walking in were you owning your power or whatever, like that's,
that
it
has no,
doesn't matter what I'm wearing. I could be naked. That doesn't give someone
right,
the
in an inappropriate,
permission to touch my body.
right,
I,
exactly.
I have an example also from working, and I was in my early 30s when this happened, and I had a coworker. We were at the same level, we both were managers, and we flirted. There was definitely sexual tension, but we worked in a restaurant that, restaurants are notorious kind of for that anyway, of inappropriate behavior. But we were just taking inventory and he dropped his pants. And it's like, what is happening right here? And I didn't report it. I didn't know what to do. We were coworkers, and
Oh my
but
God,
somebody could have said, oh, well, you flirt with him all the time.
right,
But that doesn't mean that I want that or that that's appropriate in the workplace.
right. But so many people are so afraid. I think women are afraid to say something because they don't think that they'll be believed. So I mean, I
Right.
don't know what, I don't work in corporate anymore, but there was stuff going on that was not inappropriate, but there were things going on at my last corporate job that I actually had to take them to court for, because I was not, it didn't have to do with sexual stuff, but there's this power, manpower kind of thing going on. And they're afraid to say something because how could they not be judged, or how could they prove it when this man would say, and a lot of times the CEOs of these companies or the head of the HR department is a male, and it's hard to, and then so they don't say anything, and then it continues to happen. So it's like you said, it's really like an epidemic, or it's like there's a cycle, especially when it happens once, if you don't say anything about it, there's a good chance it's going to happen with that same person again, even if it's your husband, even if it's your husband, right? So, I think a lot of
The comments that we receive as women are, we sometimes just brush them off, but they're still in, we still remember them at some point
conscious
and
level.
go, oh, that was inappropriate.
Yeah, and I just think that it's honestly sad to think that, I mean, I feel bad for me when I think back about, I mean, I told my sister and her husband this at dinner and they were like, "What? Why would he do that to you?" And that was like, you could have gotten him fired. And but here's me, I was 15 and like,
Right.
what are you going to do? And what are you going to say? But I mean, do people come to you that have um I mean, what's like, give us some examples of some types of clients that would come to you like with sexual trauma that you would help them heal from.
So one of my recent clients, it really comes sticks out in my mind because she had been sex raped pretty much from her grandfather
Okay.
when she was young, about 8 years old. She's in her 40s now, and she had never told anyone. And it was affecting her marriage. She didn't want to have sex, and it was really presenting itself of not wanting to be touched. And she had so much shame of never telling anyone.
Mm.
She didn't think her mother would believe her. She didn't want to ruin her family. She knew that she was participating because she was trying to protect her other siblings. And we did 3 EFT sessions, and one we talk when I do work with my clients just specifically on EFT, we discuss what is coming up for them right now, where they're feeling it in their body, and then I create a script and we do a tapping that is specific to that. And she had never told her husband, and she, after our one of our sessions, she went home and told her husband, and she told her brother, and her brother had also experienced it from the grandfather. And so it just gave him permission also. And like, I see when we're doing it, like right after, you can see it lift from their bodies and in their skin tone and everything. And it just really was so powerful for her relationship that she felt like a new woman being able to share that intimate experience with her husband. And he helped him understand why she's acted this way for so many years. They've been married more than 20 years, and it was a deep, dark secret that she had never shared. She
Yeah.
didn't want to shame her family and all of that, but it was so heavy in her body. It was affecting her health and everything. And
Was that grandfather still alive?
no,
Okay, so maybe that's another reason why she felt like it would be safe to finally do that. I mean, other than the fact that it was physically and emotionally keeping her stuck, from moving forward in her life with her marriage and everything. I mean, it it's I mean, yeah, all that shame. It's just a horrible thing that I see with clients too that have never said anything about a sexual trauma that's happened specifically with a family member. I mean,
yeah,
it's more common than you think with a family member.
way more common than you think.
But it's also very common to not ever say anything about it because of the shame around it. And um, I that's another thing I wanted to talk about is you also work with people that have body shame. And specifically, I'm guessing that this one of the kind of areas of body shame is when people have cancer and they have to have a surgery that makes their body look different than they're used to. And can you tell us a little bit about what you see with regards to body shame? in clients?
So for women, a lot of the cancer with breast cancer, one of the most predominant cancers that I work with, that's an altering surgery that is equated with what society thinks as femininity. Even with ovarian cancer or uterine cancer, the same thing. Like those are I have my students sometimes, am I still a woman if I don't have a uterus? And I can't have babies and I can't reproduce. And especially with young cancer survivors that's really traumatic to, and with all the genetic testing and knowing that they could possibly get it. So preventative care and preventative surgeries are very traumatic as well, even though that they know that they're saving their lives, they have traumatic experiences then with their bodies. And so we use EFT to normalize their body, and we do other activities as well, but to really love your body and to thank it and to embrace everything about your being. And it is very traumatic for women, and for men, prostate surgery, but that's internal, so they don't see, they have other sexual repercussions, but from surgery usually. And with women, it's external usually. And so it's getting them to learn to love their bodies and to embrace what they have and to use ways to cover up what you don't love so much and what you are uncomfortable with at the moment. And there's lots of ways to work through that.
So, I mean, it's basically part of your life with your partner, that you kind of are giving up for the time being, that, when you have these traumas and stuff, and or when you have a surgery like a mastectomy or something that where your body isn't the same and you don't feel comfortable, um, you know, showing your partner what's underneath or whatever. And does this really, I mean, the clients that you see, are they like really struggling? Do they come to you after years of struggle? Do they come to you after, before the surgery even happens and say, I'm going to have this and I know that it's going to really affect me? Or what does that look like?
Most of our students that are in our Sexy Survivor program are at least 6 months out of treatment. During treatment, they're concerned about staying alive and dealing with the mitigating, the after effects and current effects of chemo and radiation and surgery. And oftentimes doctors dismiss what is going on physically with their body besides, unless it's medically. So I've had doctors tell my patients that, and my survivors, oh, it's just a breast, get over it. Um, they really don't have the doctors keep people alive. They don't have the skill set necessarily to be empathetic of these concerns. And a lot of time, 3 out of 4 women have some kind of sexual side effect from cancer treatment. And so it's very prevalent. It's not really discussed in the treatment plan. And that's why we've created this platform, is because it's really neglected. And also women are twice as likely to be divorced during treatment than men are when they go through any kind of cancer treatment. And so I think women are really, when you see those kinds of statistics, but also, men, a lot of men don't deal with things as well as they should or could, and just kind of shut down and don't know what to say, how to act, how to engage. And so we help with the partners as well, to talk tell them how to react, because I find a lot of times my survivors are ready to re-engage in intimacy and their partners are afraid they're going to hurt them.
See, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. But this program that you came up with, I mean, I think it literally is revolutionary. I feel like, and I don't know if this goes on because luckily I've never had to experience this personally, but when you're going through any kind of cancer treatment as a man or a woman, I feel like you should be offered some type of therapy, whether, whether it's grief, whether it's, shame, whether it's just emotional support, whether it's, you don't know if you even have any support system when you're going into something like this. Like, why isn't that, or is it part of, do you see it as a part of the hospital systems now? And I mean, I think it should be a part of the system if it's not, because any surgery, no matter if it's disfiguring or not, is a trauma. I mean, I tap with people that have had
Mhm.
their tonsils out when they were little and they're still traumatized from that experience because, oh, they had to stay over alone in a hospital when they were 5 back in the 80s or the 70s or
Yeah.
whatever. You know, I mean, surgery in general, having a baby is traumatic. Like all of these things, they just send you on your way with a bag of goodies and goodbye. Um,
Mhm.
is what is your experience in, with the hospital system and how this any type of therapy for cancer survivors works?
So there usually, I mean, not all hospitals, but a lot of hospitals do have therapists available. They do have support groups that they send you to, but not everybody is ready to do that when they're in treatment. And a lot of times those resources go away after your treatment is completed. And because sex is still taboo in our society and that nobody wants to talk about it, and a lot of therapists aren't really and doctors aren't trained in specific sexuality, and so there isn't a lot of support around the country and in that area. And so that's somewhere where I really specialize in is, so many women don't even know where their surgery was, that the doctors, if you ask them, I remember talking to a lady, she was in her 70s, and we were talking about what surgery she said. She's like, well, he just told me it was down there. My doctor did. Well, was it ovarian? Was it uterine? Was it vulvar? Was it vaginal? Was it anal? Well, he just said it was down there. Like, we can't even name our body parts, and we can't advocate for it on social media because then we get shame, get shut down on social media. So you can't, it's it's like we want to talk about anatomy, but you can't say the words. So then it's making it even worse. Like all these like girls, like, oh, here's a taco, and here's our, like
I
on social media because you can't mention a vagina.
I know it's taboo. And when we're talking about this, it brings up something that I'm going through right now because I'm in perimenopause. I'm almost 50. And the amount of advocating that I am having to do for myself because a regular gynecologist won't talk about hormone replacement therapy is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. So I can't imagine what goes on with, the stuff that you're dealing with these clients. I mean, thank goodness that you do this because it's something that should be addressed specifically before you like leave a hospital or after you have these surgeries, because the trauma from like we said, the surgery in general is enough. And then when you have this body that you're not used to looking at, the shame and trauma from that and the relationship with your partner is totally changed the second you walk out the door from the hospital. So the fact that that's not being addressed is shocking to me. And the fact that, we can't talk about hormone replacement therapy is shocking to me. I mean, I was just on this other podcast a minute ago and we were talking about, I can't wait to go to my son's baseball game tonight, not because I love to see him play, but the group of moms that are there, all we do is talk about hormone replacement therapy because no one can get a good answer. No one can get a straight answer. No one can get, no one wants to talk to you about it because they don't want to get in trouble for something that happened back in the 80s when they were giving HRT to women without testing it enough first, and people were getting
And
cancer.
with those were synthetic hormones that are
Right.
don't necessarily need to be used anymore. I do bioidentical hormones. I've been doing them for 9 years. I love them. It saved my life.
That's what,
But I can't hear when I talk, I can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Oh, now I can. I think when I'm talking and it doesn't let you talk also.
Good.
But I was going to say last night I was at a networking and I was a speaker and we were talking afterwards in our roundtable group about all the things with menopause too and all the shame and body shame because you gain weight and that no one talks about it. I work with a really prominent hormonal menopause specialist here in LA and she's one of my clients. I'm her business strategist, so we can talk more about that. I happy to talk to your group and
It's awesome.
about that also.
Well, good. Well, let's let's talk about Sexy Survivors. Tell us what that entails, this platform that you've come up with.
So we're in the infancy stages. We're doing some pilot programs, case studies to gather quantitative data right now with survivors. But our goal is to have the hospitals and cancer treatment centers fund it and pick it up so that it's part of their ongoing treatment plan, but also just the comprehensive plan for their survivors, that it's included in their treatment. Because I've been coaching cancer survivors for about 10 years now. And what I found is that, yes, they want it, they need it, but they've already depleted their resources, and to pay for out of pocket for additional coaching is really difficult and something that women struggle sometimes putting themselves first and spending money on themselves. They'll spend it on their kids games and sports and everything, but they feel selfish if they spend the money on themselves and their own personal body and relationship and intimacy. And so we really are going for having this picked up and funded by the big entities so that all survivors can have this. And we're starting with female breast and genital cancers, and then we'll move into other cancers, male prostate, testicular, genital cancers for men as well.
And when you would get this type of program, or when you go through, and hopefully this does get picked up, because it's amazing that you're doing this, that you're starting it, and I hope it gets picked up, that what does it entail? Tapping? Like, tell us what it actually entails.
So it's a 7-week online group program that we start a cohort every month. And so we have coaches that speak multiple languages, so we can go into Spanish speaking, Dutch speaking, French speaking countries right away. So it doesn't have to be limited to any geographic area. And one full session is dedicated to tapping. And then I teach them how to write their own scripts also. And so it's a big part of our experience. And the first cohort that we did for the case study said that that was one of their favorite modules, because most of them had never heard of it and never experienced it. And just, spending an hour talking about what they were experiencing and then creating it themselves was really, really powerful. And it's something, that they can do just to refresh when they're having their anxiety come up, and just teaching them that, you can just tap right here and your body remembers.
I think it's awesome that you said that you teach them how to write their own scripts, because that's like the biggest complaint I get from my clients, is that I didn't know what to say. So I didn't tap in between the time I saw you last. It's like so frustrating to me. I think, oh my gosh, how do you, but it is hard, especially in the moment when you're in having anxiety or whatever you're wanting to tap for, to come up with something that resonates or that is specific enough to have really good results, because it is very important what those words mean, what you say, that it resonates with you. And I actually just came up with 30 days worth of tapping scripts for trichotillomania, which is, the people that I help and what I have overcome with tapping. So it's compulsive hair pulling disorder, and 30 days worth of what you can say once a day for 30 days. Here's your script, because that's just people. I feel like people need that. And to be able to teach them to do on scripts is like key. I feel like I need to have a class on teaching people how. You gave me a good idea
Yeah.
how to write their
And
scripts.
and we record all of it also. So they have, and when I work with my private clients, I audio record it or video record it so that they can go back, and I have them do it 2 or 3 times that week in between sessions, so that they are continually doing it. And then all of our survivors also get a private session with a coach. And a lot of times those private sessions, we're creating a tapping script.
Yeah, I do the same as well, where I give them an option at the beginning of our work together, that they we video it, and then I post it on a private link for them, because we do a lot of tapping, and it is nice to be able to go back and use those scripts that are so specific that you came up with while you were working with them. So it is a benefit to be able to go back to those videos and use those scripts that
I
we.
have all, when I was learning it myself, I have all this recordings. My coach did that for me. And I go back and listen to them and do when I have, for example, yesterday was my mother's birthday. So I went back and listened to a tapping and helped with the grief. And, even though that was 7 years ago or so, that, I can still go back and use those recordings.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that I love that it's still helpful. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can still use them when those things come up. Like you said, there's this grief there. It's around her birthday. And oh, I remember that I had that script about grief that really helped me. So, also, one thing I wanted to ask you, do you use any other energy modalities in your platform or with current clients other than tapping?
I don't use really energy modalities, but I do a lot of sensation work. And so we really tap into all the senses. And um, one of the activities I do with most women that I work with is a mirror exercise where they strip down and have to thank their body and just look at their body and tell it it's beautiful, and ex do that on a regular basis so that it's like I see myself, because so many women avoid mirrors and avoid looking at themselves, and it really forces them. And I I've done it at retreats where I'm there with the women doing it, and it's magical for to see them go, this is the first time I've told my body that I love it and that I feel sexy and that this is who I am. Because for one lady, she had such bad knee pain and had always hated her body because it had given up on her. And I find that with cancer survivors a lot too, is that there's a traumatic piece of guilt that that they hate their body because it's given up on them and they can't trust. So we work to reinstill trust in your body that it's going to support you.
And it's interesting though about the mirror. I think it's like gave me goosebumps when you said it, because I feel like you might even have to tap with a client, and you probably have, that they can't even do that in the mirror. They can't even get down to, I mean, they probably haven't looked at themselves naked in the mirror in years, because it's so traumatizing to even look in the mirror at yourself with no clothes on. So, I mean, I I think that it's amazing to get women to just meet themselves where they are, not I'm going to look at myself after I lose that 10 pounds, or I'm going to, once I don't have this physical thing, then I'll look at myself.
Yeah,
Or
or once I get my breast reconstruction done, I'll do it then. Or once the scars are healed, I I teach a course called Empowered Passion, and one of the ladies that was just in it, it's like told me that she's like, I didn't want to be in the course because I knew you were going to make me look at my scars and touch my scar from my C-section. And she's like, I fought my husband because he bought it for her, that I didn't want to be in it because Tiffany's going to make me touch my scar.
which that's huge though, to be able to get in touch literally with yourself and be like, you know what? This is who I am now. I'm okay with it. It's not who I was before, but I'm willing to accept this. And there's probably so much tapping that goes on just from that, just the visual, seeing yourself in the mirror, that there's other things that have to get resolved when you're after you look. Maybe there's still things that you don't like after you look and you want to tap about those. But I mean, I have that too right now. I mean, after having two kids, I have like extra saggy skin on my stomach that I always hate. Like I feel like, oh, I could never wear a bikini again, and that's fine. That's what I gave up to, be a mom. I don't have this perfect stomach thing anymore, but it's okay. But it's a shame that that's what society has done to the way that we think too, when you think about it, that you can't be happy unless you're, on TikTok showing the latest, or buying the latest diet fad or doing the latest whatever thing. I mean, to be present, I guess, in your body, to just be thankful, be present, and not always be being trying to change what you are, how you were, how God made you, how the universe made you, whatever. It's a different way of being than trying to be something else, something that you're not.
Well, and I encourage you and all women to appreciate that you have that extra skin from having your babies. You house two beautiful beings. And there are tons of women that would literally do anything to be able to have children and can't. And so I look at all of the things on our bodies that society would say are imperfections or things that, discolorations or scars, as they're really a roadmap to our life. They tell our stories, and they're tiger stripes. Like no one has the same ones as you do. And so if you look at it as, hey, I can remember where that came from and what happened in my life at that time, that it can be really beautiful. Like that's my roadmap of who I am. I have a little scar right here when I fell down the slide when I was like a baby, like, so embrace that. Wow, I have this, and somebody else would really wish that they could have that.
Yeah, I tell my boys, my youngest specifically, he's just turned 10, and he'll say, well, why do I have these little freckles or whatever? Or what are these marks? And I'll say they're beauty marks. They're because you're beautiful. Everyone that you have means you're more beautiful. And it's it is very it's funny though how we can tell our kids that, and then we can't think that about our own bodies, which I have embraced my stomach thing. I mean, it is what it is. It's, hey, I got to have two beautiful boys. And so what if my skin stretched out? I'm glad that it could stretch out. I'm glad that I could do this and that I have these healthy kids that, and my kids will say sometimes if they see me like with a shorter shirt, or I said, why do you have that saggy skin, mom? Well, because that's where you lived. This is, I did this. I was willing to give up. You got to live in my body, and that's what happens sometimes. So, it is what it is, and it's fine, and I'm fine with it. I really am. And I am glad that now people can know that they can come to you and work with you and get over the shame, you know, all of the things that society puts on us that are keeping us from living our authentic life, our being our authentic self, and having pleasure, because everyone deserves to have pleasure, whether it's, with your partner, with just visually feeling beautiful in your own body, that everyone deserves it no matter what. So I'm just thankful that I could have this conversation with you today. And the work that you're doing is so inspiring. I mean, it literally, like just talking about it, I have goosebumps just thinking what you're doing for people, for women, for cancer survivors everywhere. And I'm just thrilled that we could connect and do this. And I'd love for you to tell our listeners how they can find you and work with you, and what, if you have any special offers you'd like to share with our listeners.
The easiest way is to go to enticeme.com. There is a sexy survivor page. You can join our case study there. If you're a survivor, you can donate to support our cause there. You can email me directly from the page, so we can set up a time to chat some more and see if it's a good fit. I do have some webinars coming up, so join my email list from the website and we'll keep you informed with all of those.
That's awesome. And I will have all of that information will be in the show notes at the end of the show. And just a reminder, if you'd like to work with me, you can schedule a free discovery call on my website, tapintohealth.net. Or if you're ready to start right now, you can visit my online store and download pre-recorded mini sessions. Thank you, Tiffany, so much for being here today. I know our listeners, especially the women out there, got so much from your interview today. So I'm just grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening today, and we'll see you next time. Until then, keep tapping.